Hey guys, welcome to the Sports Note for Tuesday, August 1st. At the time I'm recording this, it is 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. That means there are only 15 minutes left in the Major League Baseball trade deadline before everything locks at 6 p.m. Eastern. And the most active teams that we were talking about a week ago with the Anaheim Angels have basically taken a back seat now to the New York Mets, and not for the ways that you're thinking. The Mets came into this season with a $384 million plus payroll, which was the highest in the history of baseball. As a matter of fact, 3 teams came in with over $300 million payrolls. The Yankees and the San Diego Padres were the others. And as it stands right now, the Mets are the only team over the $300 million mark. And that's even after unloading 5 key pieces to their roster. We saw earlier, actually right in the middle of the Wise Guy Sports Show that we did with Alex Ruiz on Saturday night, we saw the Mets had traded Max Scherzer to the Texas Rangers. Now, Scherzer's contingency on the entire deal going through with having a no trade clause was that the Rangers were going to pick up his player option for next year, which he already opted into. So that one was so that's over and done. So that's one piece gone. We actually saw the Mets turn over Mark Canha earlier today to the Milwaukee Brewers, as the Brewers added up another power bat to be matched with Carlos Santana from the Pittsburgh Pirates over the weekend. There were even talks at some point this afternoon by both ESPN and CBS that the Mets were even fielding offers for Pete Alonso, determining whether or not the return value was going to be enough. We saw we actually saw one of their relievers, David Robertson, get moved to the Miami Marlins, which just bolstered another team within the division. And then today comes down the rumor that I brought up in the middle of the Wise Guy Sports Show on Saturday, and that was the possibility of Justin Verlander getting moved to either the Houston Astros, the New York Yankees, and then as we saw, other teams were coming into and coming out of conversations with those throughout the day. He was at one point linked to the Baltimore Orioles, the Tampa Bay Rays, the San Diego Padres, the New York Yankees, the Houston Astros, and the Texas Rangers at some point throughout Tuesday afternoon. And eventually he goes back to the Houston Astros just a few years after leaving there, winning a World Series for a couple of prospects. Now, this is where I am going to kind of deem myself Nostradamus, based off of what I actually brought to the fold and introducing the rumor on Saturday night's episode. But this is also the official teardown and rebuild, even though it's going to be a very short-term idea, of the New York Mets, with owner Steve Cohen obviously saying he's got no problem going out and spending money. He went out and spent more money going into 2022, and that's even with the Francisco Lindor thing, than any owner in the history of baseball. And we're even talking Steinbrenner here in that, in hopes to bring the Mets their first World Championship since 1986. The problem is that you can call it injuries, you can call it running into the red-hot Atlanta Braves at the end of last year. 2023 is going to go down for the New York Mets as the most disappointing and underachieving seasons in the history of professional baseball. You cannot have a team this loaded in talent with this high of a payroll right now, sitting 5 games under 500. They are 6 games out of the third and final spot in the National League wild card, and they are 17.5 games out of first in the NL East. where Atlanta is starting to run away with that division again. Last year, the Mets were way out in front and then cooled off in August and September, and then Atlanta got on a roll, the likes of which most of us have never seen, and overtook the Mets in the final weekend of the regular season to claim the NL East crown. As it turns out, it relegates the Mets to the wild card round against the San Diego Padres. And during the Big Rican roundtable that we had going into the playoffs last year, I asked Mike point blank, did he have his playoff appearance gear, because it was going to be the only one he was going to get. And sure enough, the Mets go out in that best of three in the first round. So a very, very disappointing season for them. Again, choking away the lead, that huge lead late in the year, and then going out in the first round. This year, the Mets, we don't actually have to worry about Francisco Lindor coming up short in the playoffs or in big moments late in season and late in games, because the Mets are going to be sitting home right now, and there's a lot of things that people need to think about. Whether or not any of these prospects that the Mets have gotten back for all of these players that they've turned over in the last 4 to 5 days remains to be seen, because at this point you're wishing on magic beans. You're looking at a 3 to 5 year turnaround before you can actually make a determination as to whether or not these players are going to pay off in the end. Because you think about it, Scherzer's going to be 40 next year. Verlander's already 40. They've only got a couple of years left in them. You've got Nimmo, who's 30. Lindor is still in his mid-20s. He's still got there's no way they're going to move him with that massive contract in his age. Although you would figure for a guy being paid $31.4 million that he could hit a little bit better than .234. Yet, even though he has 21 home runs, his RBI total is a little bit lower, and he does have 17 stolen bases. So you're expecting a little bit more out of your $300 million guy. And there's now already the talk has speculated as to, are the Mets going to be able to take some of these players and maybe able to package them up and try and send them off to the Los Angeles Angels to be able to attract Shohei Ohtani at the end of the season, and possibly pay Ohtani $400 million, which would end up pushing their payroll over $450 million, because the Mets are one of the few teams in baseball that would be able to offer him $60, $70, $80 million a year. The problem is, and if anyone listens to the Keith Olbermann podcast, he actually brought this up on yesterday's show, that the Mets' track record is not the best when talking about bringing in stud free agents and getting the biggest return out of them. I feel that the Lindor thing has been a dramatic disappointment for them, as was evident in his last year or two in Cleveland. The Scherzer and Verlander aspect of that, you were hoping that these guys were going to ace a staff that was going to be able to get you to a World Series, let alone win a championship. And now you've got, in the 2 years since they've been paired together, you've actually got a first-round exit and also blown up at the trade deadline with still 55 games to go, 57 games to go in year two. They failed on Duke Snider. They failed on Vince Coleman, who Olbermann reminded me on that episode yesterday that he threw lit firecrackers at Mets fans years ago. So I'm hoping that Ohtani does not go to the Mets, although that is going to disparage Mike, but I think it's better for baseball if he does not end up in New York or go to the Los Angeles team in the National League. Right now, I would hope that he would stay with the Angels or a team. I could, and at that particular point now, I could almost say I don't want to see him in Texas, although I would love to see the Rangers. You always kind of want to see the team break through and get their first title. The Rangers still never done that. So him going to Texas and getting that championship, although it would push Texas into that range of the Yankees and the Mets and the Dodgers of $350 million plus payrolls at that point, because now you add in Scherzer at $43.3 million, and sorry, let me back up here for a second. There's no way in hell a 39-year-old Scherzer and a 40-year-old Verlander should be commanding $43.3 million each at this stage in their career. There's just no way, shape, or form that should be happening. And this is where the problem lies with baseball. And I get the revenue sharing and everything. So the teams that don't have the ability to spend the money, like your Cincinnati's, your Pittsburghs, your Cleveland's, your Minnesotas, your Miamis, have the ability to be able to make money without being able to spend money because of the markets that they're in. But it doesn't. The fact that the Mets are $144 million, even after the Verlander deal, $144 million over the competitive balance tax, which at that point it's essentially the baseball equivalent of the luxury tax in the NBA, which is actually going to come back to haunt the Golden State Warriors, who actually had to let a point guard go to the Cleveland Cavaliers because they could not afford to pay the guy and match the offer sheet that the Cavaliers gave the player, because they were up against the limit of the luxury tax at that point. And I understand that Cohen's got no problem paying this money, but you would at least like to be able to see some sort of return on your investment, as opposed to two disappointing seasons, and let's call 2023 what it is for the Mets: an abject failure and collapse. So let me know what you guys think. I know Mike's going to let me have it on this, but I'm not concerned about the future right now. This is only about the present, and this season for the Mets has been an absolute disaster. It's a failure. So again, let me know what you guys think. I will be back with you guys later on this week or early next. No Wise Guys show this week. We'll actually be back next week on the 12th. So everybody take care.